है कि प्रॉब्लम को तो हम अच्छा आइडेंटिफाई कर लेते हैं, उसमें मैं भी शामिल हूँ। हम मसाइल को आइडेंटिफाई करते, लोगों के सामने जाहिर करते, लेकिन हम मसाइल के हल के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं? हमको मसाइल के हल करने की ज़रूरत है। आज पहले की बनिस्बत बहुत सा तालीमी शऊर अक़लियतों में बेदार हुआ है। आज कई इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस में अक़लियती तलबा हज़ारों की तादाद में, मेडिकल कॉलेजेस में है। आज दिन ब दिन शऊर बेदार होता जा रहा है और तलबा पढ़ने की तरफ पहले की बनिस्बत परसेंटेज ज़्यादा, दिन ब दिन ज़्यादा होते जा रहा है रेशियो इसका। लेकिन और हमको अवेयरनेस पैदा करने की ज़रूरत है। और ख़ास तौर पर आखिर में मैं, क्योंकि वक्त बहुत हो चुका, मेरा वक्त था सिर्फ 25 मिनट का, मैं समझता हूँ कि मेरा वक्त मैं क्रॉस कर लिया, तो आखिर में मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि अक़लियतों के लिए ख़ास तौर पर कैरियर गाइडेंस और काउंसलिंग की ज़रूरत है। कि बच्चों के लिए आप यहाँ पर इतने NGOs, यहाँ पर इतने इदारों के सरबराह हैं, हुकूमत की जानिब से भी एक प्रपोज़ल है कि कैरियर गाइडेंस सेंटर का। उसके अलावा भी आप लोग ये कोशिश कीजिए कि अक़लियतों के लिए कैरियर गाइडेंस सेंटर कायम कीजिए। कि बच्चा 10th में आने के बाद, बच्चा अगर आपसे अप्रोच होता है तो बच्चे को मालूम होना चाहिए कि 10th में आने के बाद पॉलीटेक्निक एक ही नहीं है, इंटरमीडिएट एक ही कोर्स नहीं है, इसके अलावा और कई कोर्सेस हैं। इंटर पास करने के लिए बाद एमसेट ही नहीं है एक, एमसेट के अलावा आपके सबों के रास्ते खुले हुए हैं। आप ग्रेजुएशन करने के बाद आईसेट ही नहीं है, आईसेट के अलावा आपको पीजी है, पीजी में साइंसेस में आपको 20 से 25 कोर्सेज साइंसेस में है, सोशल साइंस में 12 कोर्सेस है, आर्ट्स सब्जेक्ट में आपको 18 कोर्सेज, ऐसे कई कोर्सेस है। हमको रिसर्च तक आने की ज़रूरत है। और ख़ास तौर पर हमारे बच्चों को ग्रुप के इम्तहानात लिखने की ज़रूरत है। ग्रुप 1, ग्रुप 2 के इम्तहानात में 1 से 2-3% बच्चे हमारे अक़लियतों के लिखते हैं, जिसमें से सिलेक्शन बड़ी मुश्किल से, लास्ट टाइम ग्रुप 1 में 4 बच्चों का सिलेक्शन हुआ हमारे पास। तो जाहिर है वो जो 4 बच्चे सिलेक्ट हुए, 10 साल के बाद IAS कन्वर्ट होंगे, वो कलेक्टर बनेंगे। देखिए, आप टीचर बनना और कलेक्टर बनने में बहुत बड़ा फ़र्क है। एक टीचर्स के पावर क्या रहते हैं, कलेक्टर के पावर क्या रहते हैं। तो 4 बच्चे सेलेक्ट हुए, जाहिर है कि वो बच्चे 4 साल के बाद, 10 साल के बाद IAS कन्वर्ट होंगे। आप देखिए, आंध्र प्रदेश में जो IAS ऑफिसर्स की जो तादाद है मुसलमानों की, आप उंगली पे नाम के साथ मैं बता सकता हूँ कितने हैं। 6-7 हमारे IAS ऑफिसर है, 4-5 IPS ऑफिसर है, और बिल्कुल एक IRS ऑफिसर है। फॉरेन सर्विस तो है नहीं, IFS में 2-3 लोग हैं, 3-4 लोग IFS है फॉरेन सर्विस के, और पोस्टल डिपार्टमेंट में नील है, और दूसरे रेलवेज में नील है। तो ऐसे हमको ग्रुप सर्विसेज में आने की ज़रूरत है। सिविल सर्विस एग्जामिनेशन लिखने की ज़रूरत है, ग्रुप 1 इम्तहान लिखने की ज़रूरत है एग्ज़ाम। आप ग्रुप 2 लिखिए, ग्रुप 1 लिखिए। ग्रुप 1 में देखिए आपको RDO है, डिप्टी कलेक्टर रैंक है आपको RDO, और ट्रेजरी ऑफिसर है, DTO है, RTO है, DSP है, ऐसे कई और ओहदे हैं ग्रुप 1 में, जो आपको आइंदा जाने के बाद 10 सालों के बाद IAS और IPS कन्वर्ट होते हैं आप। उसी तरीके से आप ग्रुप 2 लिखिए। ग्रुप 2 में सारे के सारे गजेटेड पोस्ट है, ACTO है, DTO है, असिस्टेंट DTO है, ऐसे ट्रेजरी ऑफिसर्स है, ऐसे बहुत सारे कोर्सेस है। तो इन शोबों में हमको आने की बहुत ही सख्त ज़रूरत है। और ये अभी जो मैं आपको डाटा यहाँ पर बता रहा था कि हुकूमत का डाटा था, कि हुकूमत की जानिब से जो कोचिंग प्रोवाइड की जा रही, जो फ्राहम की जा रही थी, उसका डाटा था। उसके अलावा और NGOs की जानिब से भी कोचिंग प्रोग्राम्स दिए जा रहे हैं। लेकिन हमको जब भी मालूम होगा, जब हम अखबार पढ़ेंगे तो ही ये सारी चीज़ें मालूम होती है। तो हमको अखबार पढ़ने की ज़रूरत है, और ख़ास तौर पर काउंसलिंग सेंटर की अक़लियतों को बहुत ही सख्त ज़रूरत है। मैं आपका वक्त, बहुत ज़्यादा वक्त ले चुका हूँ, क्योंकि और भी बहुत से यहाँ पर मुखर्रिरीन यहाँ पर तशरीफ़ फरमा है। तो मैं इन अल्फाज के साथ आप तमाम से इजाज़त चाहता हूँ। शुक्रिया, खुदा हाफिज़।
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakur. I would like to tell this, whatever is being said here, it will be available on YouTube. We will be giving you the link. Don't think that you have heard it. If you have not taken it down, if you have not made a note of it, you will get the opportunity. It will be permanently available by All India Muslim Education Society for everybody to benefit from that. Thank you very much, Mr. Shakur. Now I would request Professor Amina Kishore, Dean, School of Languages, Linguistics and Indology, and Professor in charge, Manu CSE Coaching Academy. Madam, please, her subject is Status of women education in light of RTE.
Assalamu alaikum. I must start with a small correction to what Adil Sahib has said. I am all of that but retired. I was with Manu with great pride. I am very proud to say that I was associated with the Urdu University. My claim for standing here today rests on that, my experience with Manu, and also my 38 years of experience with Aligarh Muslim University. I was a principal of the very prestigious historic Abdullah Women's College in Aligarh. Those of you who have been associated with Aligarh Muslim University know that. So those are my only claims for standing here, trying to address you. And from the morning, I have been very happy to hear so many good speakers holding forth on the law related to rights of Muslims, Muslim education. I am also happy to say that here and there women came in the picture, sometimes presenting a good report, sometimes speaking about the shortfalls in their prospects. So I thought I'll speak on women's education, Muslim women and education, in the light of so many laws that are now available to us, in the light of especially the right to education. I would start by saying that if Muslims are a marginalized community, Muslim women are doubly marginalized. I think all of you will agree with me. Women in Islam are bound by not only the societal pressures in India, but also the community roles that they have to play. Lack of education among Muslim women has resulted in many drawbacks. Scientific surveys have shown us that illiteracy is closely related to high rate of fertility, mortality, low rate of nutritional powers. Illiteracy is related to, you'll be surprised, inversely related to the child rearing capacity. An illiterate woman cannot be a good mother because she cannot help her children in education. She cannot follow the prospects of her children in educational careers. In this way, it's very easy to see how the role of women in Islam, the Muslim women in Indian society, has suffered because of the rate of literacy. I was very surprised to hear some data, but data are always subject to change and subject to the kind of surveys that are done. But as far as I understand, the percentage of literate women in India, Muslim literate women in India is 13%. Among those 13%, 59% of the 13% only has gone beyond the primary education level. 41% remain within primary education level. So primary education is no level at which a woman can be really called, in real terms, that she can be called a literate person or a person who is empowered. For every 100 boys who are out of school, dropout has been mentioned in terms of Muslim community. For every 100 such boys who have dropped out due to various reasons, there are 117 girls who have dropped out. And mind you, Muslim women are seen in higher education, we are seen in workforce, but we are only a very small, minuscule minority. So now, the happy augury is that the governments are waking up, thanks to the 2006 Sachar report. Governments have woken up to the fact that this community needs a special attention. Now it's up to the community to say if the community, within that community, the women need special attention or not. It's the responsibility of the whole community as a whole, to see what kind of special attention we are ready to give to the women within us, among us. The 5-year plans have been community friendly, minority friendly. There have been a lot of schemes. There are many surveys which are ordered by the governments. But in practice, the reality remains the same, that the force that is needing attention from us, the number of women that need attention from us, is only growing day by day. Early marriages, childbearing and child rearing, some kind of taboos that some men have in their minds about women working or studying for higher order, parental anxieties, and the insecurity out there, the home to school insecurity that is growing day by day. These are the various factors which no scheme related to education, no governmental sanction is going to help. There has to be a huge change in the mindset of the whole society. There has to be a huge force from the Muslim men, helping force, which will help the women to come up and become real partners in the progress that is expected in our community. I was rather unhappy to see this morning that there was not a sufficient number of women, but those who are represent the quality. There are educationists, there are management experts, there are counselors, there are specialists in special education. There are all kinds of women available. They need your help and they need your guidance. If the men stand with them, if the men help them, encourage them, provide them the necessary push and the necessary impetus, I'm sure that they will look after their sisters quite well. The RTE is with us. The RTE does not especially talk about Muslims or Hindus or men or women. But yes, there are implicit clauses here and there where we can read into the text. Poverty is one yardstick which the RTE mostly uses. It tells the cream schools in the society that 25% of seats must be reserved. In the morning, Professor Ahmadullah Khan also made a reference to that. I must give you a very happy news here, that given the 25%, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra have made a special kind of a provision. And I must tell you here that provision has been made after a pressure group operated with the governments. The special provision is that in that 25%, a preference must be given to girls. So if there are girls who are available and willing to study in those schools, the 25% should be, the first part of the 25% should be inclusive of girls. So if there are such kind of a provision, such kind of movements, and such kind of possibilities, I think it is up to Andhra Pradesh, the Muslims of Andhra Pradesh, who should come forward and say that, yes, we also want something like that. There is no harm in following the model of Nagpur. Whereas, what makes me sad is that under the same RTE, we had another provision which we call area intensive program. That is, it was recognized that the Muslim population is not equitably distributed or equally distributed. The dominant Muslim population need not be everywhere the same percent dominant. That there may be some pockets in which the dominance of the Muslim population can be seen. In some population, in some areas, it may be diffused. So the government should pay special attention to those pockets where the Muslim population is dominant. This is what we understand by area intensive program. So first of all, we have to identify the areas where there is the population is intensively available, poverty is intensively available, and then that group should be helped. So when the area intensive program was launched, 13 states were taken up by the Andhra Pradesh government. When it was launched in Hyderabad, in Andhra Pradesh, 13 states were identified. In Andhra Pradesh, again a sub-study was conducted, and the districts which were intensively populated by Muslims were identified. But when the work started, only one district, Kurnool, was taken up for study, which means that the apathy from the government, which is not surprising. I am never surprised by apathy from the government. The apathy from the government, which is not surprising, was allowed to operate because the community also kept quiet. The community did not educate itself on the availability of this kind of programs. We did not step forward. We did not pressurize the government to identify other areas also. You may find me sidetracking, but I'll mention Maulana Azad Urdu University, where also we set up regional centers and we set up colleges, we set up polytechnics by the same principle of area intensive program. Wherever there are many Muslims available who need to be educated, we try to set up our centers there. And the same principle is followed whenever we identify an area. We see to it that the area is identified, the percentages are obtained, land is obtained, sanctions are obtained, sponsors are obtained, and then we pressurize the university to start a center there. You understand what I mean? There is a whole role that the community plays there, a role that educationists play there. Professor Khalid Saeed is sitting right at the back of the auditorium. He is a professor in Urdu at Manu. He is my very good friend, and Karam Farma, he is an excellent gentleman in the sense that in Manu obtaining land at Bidar, he has been instrumental. And it's not because I saw him that I'm mentioning this to you. I'm trying to tell you this, that feeling passionate about the backwardness of Muslims is very, very easy. But looking into ourselves, soul searching to see what can I do and what have I done so far. Let me stop a moment again and tell you another story from my life. Manu is one story. I told you AMU forms a second and very important part of my life. The college which I mentioned just now, Sheikh Abdullah, a disciple of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. You all know that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was initially not very supportive of women's education, mainly because he thought that let the men get educated first, women's education will follow. We agree with that kind of principle, fine. But by 1888, Sheikh Abdullah persuaded the Muslim Education Conference, which was incidentally formed about 10 years before that. He persuaded the Muslim Education Conference to start a school for girls. So in 1888, the women's wing of Muslim Education Conference was formed. And Sheikh Abdullah was made the secretary. Sheikh Abdullah was no born Muslim. He was a Kashmiri Sardar. He had accepted Islam. He felt for the community. Since joining as a disciple of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, he became so committed to that community. The story that I want to tell you starts after this. He comes back to Aligarh. In 1896, the first school is established. He and his wife, they go home to home, door to door, persuading the parents, requesting them, begging them to send the girls to the school. I am sure this is not a new story. Almost every important institution is based on this kind of pioneer work. We need pioneers like that today also. Because, friends, forgive me for saying so, we are seeing progress all around us. But the attitudinal progress is lacking. What I might have said 40 years back at the beginning of my educational career, of my career as a teacher, I think I'm repeating now. What you must have said, what you must have lamented 20 years back about the backwardness of Muslims, we are saying the same things today. From the morning we have been hearing about what needs to be done. This is no new line. So, years back, Sheikh Abdullah does that. You'll be happy to hear why I'm proudly telling you this story is, when he is about to die, this man writes a will in which he says, my children are not the heirs of my property here. The property went to the school, which by then had become a college. Inshallah, it is on the verge of becoming a university now. He writes, and that will and the document, I've got a copy of it, I keep it, I treasure it. As a principal, I read it out again and again to the young girls, because they must know what historic institution they belong to. Please tell the histories of such people to each other. That is